Hello everybody, welcome back to You Can't Win. This is Tom here, and I'm joined by Donald as usual, as well as returning guests Leo and Tabs. So today we're just going to have kind of a roundtable discussion, fielding some of the questions that we've gotten and see where it goes. So the first question is for Donald, and it is, does Donald really like Stalin?
So do I really like Stalin? No, but I think it's funny that I read this book. I think, what was it called? Midnight at Noon? Is that what it is? Or Darkness at Noon? Oh, yeah. So Darkness at Noon. I read that book, and it was funny because it's filled with cynical arguments. It's about the Moscow trials, and it's a figure in the book is accused and sort of based on Bukharin. And I thought it was cool because it goes through some of the different arguments for on Stalin's side, and it's a lot of the ones that you'll hear nowadays, kind of thing online still even. And
oh, really?
Yeah, it was very shocking to me when I read it because they're like sophistry, but it sounds really interesting. Like it really, really captivated me because they are kind of like they make sense at some level, kind of things. Like it's stuff like it took the Soviet Union had to industrialize as fast as possible or it would get crushed, and so he has like a monologue by this guy named Gletkin, who's kind of a sort of like a dour Russian, sort of like half-wit kind of thing. And he goes on and on about how, we had some people come over from England and look at our factories and they were complaining, saying like socialists came and said, oh, your conditions aren't great. And he was like, you know what? I didn't even have a watch as a kid and now we're industrializing. Like we didn't even have like, I don't know. He just goes into it and stuff. I found that kind of, I don't know. And little things like the logic behind little things like how any little debate can become a sticking point that you can get killed for, kind of thing. Like just insanity. Like the example in the book is long-term submarines versus short-term, like short-run, like range submarines.
Range?
Like,
okay,
yeah, short range.
So
and
if you back the short range submarine, you were trying to sabotage the
no,
socialist.
it was the opposite because
Oh,
socialism in one country shows that you have to be defensive. So you're short range. But if you're long range, you're trying to project power, so you're probably a Trotskyist. So it was kind of like it's stuff like that that's funny. But then when you realize that like that's how like anything can kind of resolve down into those categories where anything you say can be used against you if and not only that, but not necessarily too, right? Like you could say, oh, you support short range submarines, so therefore you don't think that the Soviet Union is going to be able to win or something, it's
sure.
all so I found that really fascinating. And I don't know, I think there is kind of a arc where some people go down, which I did, which is like you start to look at all the counter arguments that exist for the popular things like Stalin in World War II, like making a deal with the Nazis and all that kind of stuff. So, but no, I don't actually support Stalin, although I don't like Trotsky either because I don't know, he lost to Stalin. That's pretty lame.
Nobody likes a loser.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of disturbing, kind of funny. I don't know how to describe it, but the fact that a lot of those kind of arguments, they can sort of be used to justify almost anything, like development.
Yeah.
People use that to justify, I think, pretty much any industrial program that's existed. That's sort of been the justification, is that, well, we industrialized, but that's not a specific defense of any one particular thing,
It's true. And you hear the loud People's Republic of China, still communist contingent, say that. They always say X million billion people out of poverty. This isn't communism. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's not communism. I mean, it's not bad that you got the people out of poverty, but I wouldn't call it communism.
That's sort of how I look at this stuff, is that it's fine to look at the good aspects of what happened in certain historical circumstances and stuff, but you don't have to go entirely on board. Like, you don't have to go full on, full-throated defense of everything, and start warping facts and warping your logic to kind of fit that. Like, you can just sort of, even if, let's say that you want to 100% defend the whole, like, ideology and the political principles and all that, you can still like critique it. Like it doesn't necessarily mean they did everything perfect. I think that's where
Sure.
people get a little crazy with it.
I always find the China poverty thing kind of funny in some ways because the statistic that people put online usually is something like, I think it's $500 US a year is the poverty line in China. So it's like a dollar, and I think it's like $1.50, maybe $1 even, maybe at most it's like $2 US. It's not like a huge amount. So it's people that have been reduced from extreme poverty by the UN definition under the Millennium Development Goals. So it's like all it means is that they have like access to, like rice or something, kind of, like rice and a few things, or they have like a shack and stuff, and like, or they live in a cave or something. It's not like it really does mean something like that. It means that they have like, living. It just means they're not like at the verge of death all the time or something, really. And I mean, by that measure, I think like, South Africa probably has less poverty in some ways, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's a very bizarre target. So, and I also think it's kind of funny because then they compare it against the United States for poverty, which in the United States, I think the line that they use is half of the average income or something like that, which would be like, it would be like $15,000-$20,000 a year.
Yeah, I think it's 14,000. At least the last time. It's something like that.
Yeah. So those, infographics are terrible. That's all.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's something I read in this book. I forget the name of it. China, Mao and After, or something like that, by Maurice Meissner. And he was like, he wasn't a staunch Mao apologist or anything, but he did try to kind of clear up some of the, some of the intensely negative perceptions around him in that book. And one of the things he was talking about was like the famine, and how people say so many millions of people died in that and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things he points to is that the census data that they used to make those kind of determinations, they were using census data that took place before the Maoist government came into power, and they were done very sporadically in a few towns. Like they were not representative, and so you're extrapolating from the data that you've collected from like 0.0001% of the population, and saying, well, if that's true, then there were this many people, and then once you have a more full set of data that came later with censuses that were done under Mao, they were kind of showing that like, well, you can't do that sort of thing where you just assume that like, okay, well, there's 20 million people that aren't accounted for here, so they must have all died in the famine. But it makes me think that you can't really say a whole lot about anything then, because if you just don't have the data
to compare it to,
you can't say that all the negative stuff is bunk because the data is bad, but all the positive stuff, well, that's probably true, right? You have to either say the data is bad or it's good, right? Like,
a Russian researcher, sort of as a troll, said once that, like, I don't know, a few years ago or something, that he estimated that 7 million people died in the Dust Bowl in the United States during the Great Depression.
Oh, I've seen that,
because that was like, that was the angle, was the idea that if you look at excess deaths in that kind of manner, then So I don't know. I think that's, again, it's one of those things, it's like a stage where I went through where I became kind of obsessed with those kind of mega death things kind of thing, like the millions of deaths here and there, and or millions of people getting, I don't know. But then I don't know. I also realized just basic stuff like healthcare in the world changed so much over that period. Like Mao got into power like 49 and left 76. That's like when, very basic things like, vaccines were flowing around the world, kind of like just basic like treatments like that, or like antibiotics were being deployed massively and stuff for the first time. So it's like, I don't know. It's not like, it's good that he was able to push that out into the frontiers in ways that didn't happen as much in India, but still, it's kind of silly, I don't know, to overemphasize that as if Mao was like personally deciding who would live and die and decided everyone should live or something.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of think that when you divide things up into these camps, it's not like they were individually developing everything on their own. Like the communists were doing everything just for communism, and the capitalists are doing things just for like that kind of knowledge and all those innovations and stuff were kind of like spread around and people work together. I think that's almost more heartening to me that you know it's just humanity doing things.
God bless everyone.
I have this memory of telling my mom, like, Mom, did you know that only 2 million people died in the purges?
I've done the
sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop, and I'm just like turned to her and she's like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think a few weeks later, she said something like, she was bemoaning the state of politics in the country and just saying, like, you know, fascism, communism, I don't care what you call it, but this country needs something. She was trying to connect with me on that level.
Yeah. It's funny.
That reminds me, I had that same kind of hectoring. Cool. Listen, communism is great, and here it's 16 reasons why, and here's every reason capitalism is bad. My dad, like, just going back, he's a Southerner. He listened to Rush Limbaugh. You know, I listened to Rush Limbaugh my entire childhood. He watches Fox News and screams at the TV. So I'd get him to the point where he'd agree about the system being corrupt, banks being, you know, full of devil-worshipping types. But then when I said, and it's because we need the science of Marxism, Leninism, and saying,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to another question here. How about this one? This is another one for Donald. Why does Donald like to use Curious Cat?
Okay, so I haven't actually used it in about 2 weeks now because I suspended it.
Yeah.
No. Do you know what's actually kind of heartening to me is that most of the insults I got never really landed on me. Some of them did. Some of them did when they were like compound ones that like people wrote out paragraphs and stuff. That was not good. But a lot of the insults didn't land on me because they weren't the things that I was self-conscious about. So it was just like, you're fat, and I'm like, yeah, well,
I know what you mean.
You know, whatever.
I was talking about that with Tom recently. I don't remember the provenance of the conversation, but it was just like I was remembering an argument I had when someone was really trying to get a rise out of me, and they would either say something that was true, and I'd go, "Yep, that's true," or they would say something that was not true, and I'd be like, "Wow, you're really ridiculous." You know, like it's kind of hard if you feel secure. It's kind of hard to get anything to land on you.
Yeah.
That's one of the upsides of being resigned to your fate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Donald. That was just an aside, but please go ahead.
I agree.
Yeah, Donald, do you want to maybe list the things that would actually...
No, don't let these haters under the Iron Man suit.
I don't know. I mean, it does kind of feed your ego a bit that people want to know the answers to questions of things. Kind of, you know what I mean? Like, it's nice that someone's like, you know, you should, you know, just asking questions about stuff. And people that I usually, you know, some of them I respect. Like, I know who they are sometimes, and I don't know. It's like cool to me that was like a thing. I don't know. And it was also, I really liked if I had like a few hours to kill at school or something like that, I could just burn them by thinking through my current position on whether the Ukraine famine was real or something, you know, like, I don't know, like it was like I don't know, just felt like a better use of my time than just browsing the timeline the whole time or something. So, yeah.
I do know that feeling because I used to run a very popular street style insult blog, and people would ask me questions about clothing. Like, I was an expert. I did manage a luxury clothing store, and I did know some things, but it just feels good to be treated like an expert.
Yeah.
I always think of Curious Cat as like it's your own personal press conference. You get to like just make declarations and stuff.
Sure.
All right. Hey guys, what's one of your favorite posts that your co-host has made? So we can kind of go around the circle here. Why don't you start, Leo?
I can name a Donald post offhand because I was just telling him how much I enjoyed it. and it's just a picture he drew of it's a very ambiguous white monkey or lemur, and he. I'm sorry, okay. It's really funny. I'm sorry. Let me compose myself. It's a picture of a very ambiguous lemur monkey with his palms held out in disbelief, and it says climate March and September, and there are two calendars with a March and a September. That brings me joy. That brings me joy.
That's funny. I remember a lot of Leo posts from way back from Something Awful all the time. Like, I just think about goofy stuff that you post. Like, my head weighs 25 pounds and it's full of grain. I think about that like once a week.
Oh, yeah.
It's more frequent than that. You say full of grain constantly.
That's true.
I think I says my head is 30 feet around and it's filled with grain.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's morphed in my head over the years.
I also liked Leo. I don't know if we might have to bleep this if Leo doesn't want this out there, but Ron Paul Funeral City. Those
yeah,
folks.
that's okay. That's all right. There's been enough time.
Has been enough what? Sorry, I missed that.
Been enough time.
Okay, so
been long enough.
Ron Paul Funeral City, 300 million dead.
That's still up on Tumblr if you want to look at it. Ron Paul Funeral City Tumblr.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it was like long posts about. She had different pictures of like, I don't know, ruins and stuff or whatever in cities, and I don't know, it was like containers of stuff. I don't know, and then it reminded me of also on LF there was that meme where it was like drum beat kind of thing where they would just put. It was like they would just put drum beat, kill your father and stuff like that. I don't know. It was like I put it because I just imagined it all the time in this very somber tone of like a drum going and then someone being like Ron Paul Funeral City, 300 million dead. I was like, yeah, I don't know. That was good.
Oh man.
I guess yeah. Just to do Tom's, I don't know. The thing I always like is just not like not even a specific one, but just when it's like flippant, just totally flippant out of nowhere, like as if I don't know. It just it doesn't like you could just tell it doesn't like it's like you're invested in it like 1% or something. It just doesn't matter whatsoever, and then you just be like, "Here's an opinion," kind of thing, and then I don't know, and then people flip out, and then you're just like, "Ha ha ha," kind of thing.
Then the Elmo gif comes.
Yeah,
on.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was thinking that.
It's like that's a good one. If you ever want to look that GIF up, it's just you look up shitting. That's how I found it. I just was like, I wonder what GIFs they have for shitting on this thing. And I wonder who tagged it as like posting up an Elmo GIF, and they're like, "Well, he's on the toilet."
He on the toilet. One thing that Tom writes from time to time that always makes me laugh is when somebody asks him a question that's meant to be an accusation against Islam, and he's like, "Yeah, you do that. That's fine."
Yeah, people try to attack it from a like as if I'm. I don't think they're thinking it through because they're sort of like making fun of it from the position of like, well, I don't believe it or I think it's dumb, but I don't. I do, I don't think it's dumb. I think it's true. So like, if you say like, oh, well, you believe this, it's like, well, yes, that's part of the religion. Yep. It's yeah.
It always makes me laugh when people talk about religion online as if it's like. As if you go to a quiz app and then choose the one that kind of fits with, like, as if it's the most rational thing you can think of if you had no experience of the world whatsoever, kind of thing. You're like, do I think a flood happened or something like that? Yes or no. And then you're like, I don't know.
That's true. People sort of think about it like you're supposed to have all your opinions that you just developed on your own, and then you happen to find a religion that says exactly everything that you already believe,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
not really how it works.
I would call that the Twitter bio religion people, where it's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
somebody's like, they got the pronouns, they have some emojis that have some cryptic meaning, and then it's like Jain Buddhist, but it's a guy from, New England.
Yeah. Yeah, the Wikipedia eclectic types.
Right.
I had a professor that he just kind of said as like almost an offhand comment that you shouldn't belong to a religion if you can't defend or like have complete knowledge of all of its axioms and stuff. You just shouldn't you should just assume that you don't really believe it.
Like hyper-Protestantism. They were Presbyterians about 200 years ago, but now they're a very argumentative group. They're called the Daily Fundamental Litterman, and they don't burn bridges; they build bridges. The axiom of the mouth says peanut butter sticks like glue, and that's what they believe.
It does sort of bring up the question, though, of like, how do you choose a religion?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, Islam was the one that it just kind of, that's how I found God through that. That's how it's about the experience, at least for me. Like that's what made sense. Like I sort of realized what God was by thinking about it through that lens. So that's what works for me. That's how I picked it. It's not like all the other stuff was, I don't know. It wasn't an obstacle, and it wasn't a magnet that pulled me in either. It's the core stuff that grabs you, and then you go along with it because the core stuff makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we were talking at the same time. We got into Islam, just reading Quran, and I think maybe I'll tell the world that I said the Shahada, but later recanted it. So I am an apostate, and it is legal to kill me in many countries. I became Catholic later on when I realized that it made more sense to me theologically. But yeah, so anybody listening to this who is Muslim, your religious duty is to kill me. I say let the games begin.
Well, you got to get through me first, so just let me handle it. All right, Ikhwan, I got it. All right, let's go on to the next one here. This was it says pod idea. What you guys think about younger generations, what they're getting up, how you relate to them. This guy's he doesn't like the prepositions. How you relate to them, their overexposure to social media and video games. So I thought we could just discuss this a little bit here. What do you think about the younger folks these days? How about Tabs?
Oh boy. I don't know. There's I think we've kind of talked about this before a little bit, because I am pretty online. I think partially it gives me a little bit better of an understanding about what the young folks are up to, but I think it also gives me more of just an illusion of understanding them.
Yeah.
I probably don't actually get what's underpinning their actions. I just know what jokes are popular or something like that. I don't know.
You might get why it's funny, but that doesn't mean you relate to it exactly the same way.
Yeah, definitely not the same way. And as time goes on, the distance is probably going to grow even more. I don't know. It's still hard for me to conceive. I actually find myself thinking that I'm just really grateful that I didn't grow up on social media, and that I wasn't really, really online until my personality had already formed. So I don't know if I have a good answer for the prompt, because I usually just find myself feeling grateful that I, haven't been subjected to coming of age online. And
what is it about that you are grateful about?
A sense of self. I think I have a very strong sense of self, and it gives me healthy boundaries in terms of what's acceptable to me from other people and what's not.
That's a perfect answer.
And also attention span. I have the ability to not be constantly stimulated, like all the time, and those are pretty valuable things, I think. A lot of people, and again, this is probably an issue just because I'm seeing the people who are really, really online, but sometimes you see young people sometimes they're just doing the things that young people do, but then sometimes you see them falling into like weird ideological traps and all this other stuff that they probably wouldn't be doing if they weren't really online. And that's usually when I just step back and go, oh, I'm glad I'm old, and move on from there. What about you, Tom?
The thing that strikes me about it is the dissolution of like public and private online. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can't really be fully anonymous online anymore, or at least people just choose not to be. And that seems crazy. I don't know. I don't think that would be really good.
That's even true of people who I think that's more a symptom of just the organization of online now. Like I don't, because like people our age are doing that too. Like on journalism Twitter or whatever, you'll just see people who ostensibly are on their professional accounts just blogging about their lives constantly, and I just go, what the hell is wrong with you? Why don't you want to keep these things separate?
Yeah, for whatever reason, the so-called journalists that are on Twitter seem to have really problem with oversharing and stuff. But
Yeah.
I'm just glad that that wasn't the case for me when I was in high school or whatever. I just feel like that would have been a bad time or something. I don't know. I'm glad that I was able to kind of work through some things where it kind of just stayed where it was, and it's not just like online forever, you know?
Yeah. Or tied to you forever. That's the other thing. Like you
Yeah.
can just let an old live journal account, go dormant or something. It's not always connected to you. Yeah. That's got to be really, really hard to just have every facet of your life so not only so connected to every other facet of your life, but so easy to pull up for other people, you
Yeah, or
know?
something goes viral and you're in it or whatever. Even if it's just like viral, like on a local level, where it's just like everyone in your grade sees some video
Yeah.
or whatever. Like that's or sees something you said on Facebook or someone says something else. It doesn't even have to be something you did or whatever. It could be somebody else saying something about you, and everyone else sees that. I mean, I know that kind of stuff was still kind of happening. You know, people were always gossiping and everything like that. That's sort of part of life, but it just seems pretty intense to a level that I would not enjoy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for young people, the strange thing to me is a lot of the streaming stuff seems very now almost like I'm not even sure like Pavlovian or something, like press the button, get a pellet
Yeah.
kind of thing, where it's stuff like like the pimple popping or a lot of the Instagram stuff just seems like you're looking at the exact thing you want to look at, not like what I mean. There's no everything like all different things online now seem like it's zoomed in on the most titillating part of what
Mm.
interests people, and you just get a constant flow of that. Well, whereas like that's the big difference, I think, where when we were kids and stuff, I mean, when I was young for sure, there was like, not that much on television or something. People
Yeah.
just endured the same things and stuff. And I feel like there's still that collective thing where people are watching a lot of the same stuff. I don't know. I think sometimes that's overblown, but that they're not. But a lot of it now seems to be like YouTube stars that are really like overproduced and strange and
Yeah.
in your face, and then like video games seem a lot more like streaming. And I don't know, like Fortnite, I actually have problems understanding. Like when I was watching Fortnite streaming once, I just had no idea what was going on. Like it just seemed way too confusing and involved, and I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's what it looks like to me too. I tried playing Apex
Yeah.
Legends one time, which is basically like a Fortnite style game, and I don't like I last like 3 seconds in the game. I just die instantly,
Yeah.
and then you have to wait, go through the whole loading thing. So you have to wait like 5 minutes, and then you play for like literally like 10 seconds, and you die. I didn't
Wow.
understand what was happening.
I was talking to Tom about this just recently, but I was saying that streaming is not something that I would have anticipated being as popular as it is.
Yeah.
because I was of the mindset that people are wanting, like people's attention spans are shrinking, so they want shorter and shorter, more concise, more digestible little bits of media to consume. And I really
Yeah.
didn't. Here's one thing. I never grew up with the TV on in the background like a lot of people my age
Mhm.
did and older. It was on when you were trying to watch something, and it was off at all other times. So I think that might have influenced why I didn't anticipate this, but I really didn't. I didn't take into account the draw that like having something droning in the background is for a
Yeah.
lot of people. I
Yeah.
I that's not appealing to me at all.
Mhm.
And I guess it must be. And I, of course, my knee jerk explanation for that is just like, oh, it's loneliness. That's why, this
Yeah.
modernity, drat. Everyone is so lonely, and therefore they need a stream on constantly in the background. But I don't know if that's actually why. But yeah, I definitely didn't anticipate it being nearly as popular as it is. I don't get it.
I watch a little bit of streaming. I generally
Yeah, you
watch
do.
like Magic Arena streaming, and I mean, I think I mentioned this on the other episode. I do watch City Skylines stuff that it's not streaming, but it's like recorded YouTube series and stuff, Let's Plays. I don't think that has anything to do with some kind of loneliness thing or like trying to like a lot of these people I don't find like I would not want to be friends with them or hang out with them. The magic stuff I just sort of watch that to get ideas. Like a lot of them are better players than me.
Yeah.
Like the pros stream. That's something that they are actually contracted to do. They get paid to do it.
Hmm.
So that's just like because I like to get good at the game, So I don't know. That's what that's about. And then City Skyline, I guess it's sort of the same thing. Like they're better at the game than me, and I find it fun to watch them do all the little finicky stuff that I couldn't be bothered to do in the game myself. So it's sort of like, yeah, I don't know. That's my explanation for me. I don't know if that's unusual or not, but
No, I mean that makes sense. I guess it's kind of, like I watch a lot of cooking stuff, and that's kind of a similar, you're just watching someone who has more expertise and can explain something to you. So yeah, that's a totally reasonable way to consume things, I think. But I don't know. I think some kinds of streaming, and especially like Donald mentioned, young like YouTube celebrities and stuff like that. That I think is a little bit more like cult of personality type stuff. It's not as much like
yeah.
informational. And there's a lot of stuff that is just a substitute for doing something in real, like an unboxing video or something like that, right? That's just because you would like the experience of getting stuff and like novelty and opening the
Yeah.
package and stuff like
That's
that.
a very extreme case of that kind of Pavlonian like fetish type thing that Donald was alluding to, like where it's just like you want that object, you want to see it come out of its box and stuff like that. I don't get that. Like that doesn't seem interesting to me at all. Like if I want a thing, it's because I want the thing, not because I
Yeah.
want to see
Yeah,
someone open the box.
Yeah, I feel that.
Let me tell you something about young people these days.
Yeah, go for it.
First of all, they like to use their cellular telephone. They can type on a phone as well as you may type at a keyboard. All right? And here's the next thing. Disassociation due to being dunked online constantly leads some of them to adopt increasingly bizarre identities. However, because they came of age in a time when social media wasn't oversharing publicly, they might just expose their entire bodies to like 19 select friends on a private app thing together instead of showing it to the entire wider world. They remind me in some ways of the generation before the golden age, who were just called the silent generation. And I think a lot of them have very bad eyesight due to staring at fixed focal distances for a long amount of time. I think that a lot of them have back problems because they sit or crane over with their phone. Like you see the almost dominant tilted head while stationary or even while moving, you see a head tilt. I mean, you can see that from lawyers who are on their phones all the time, but it's weird to see this really bad set of biomechanics over an entire generation just because of their tech.
I'm feeling a little attacked.
Yeah, me too.
If any young people with back problems needs help, you come to me. I don't charge too much. I'll sort you out. Right.
A lot of people don't know this, but Leo actually trains the police officers who go undercover at high schools, posing as drug dealers and stuff.
I do. I groom them, not in a sexual way, but I groom them to fit with the youth. The youth of today like a lot of Eastern market catered, streetwear inspired, terrible clothes, like long sleeve t-shirts. You thought that was gone with the days of the Ozfest or Vans Warped Tour? No, that's back. The youth level long sleeves tee. Very, very large jeans with a flare. You thought that was gone with Billy Davis of Korn? No, it's back. It's back. It's back with the youth.
I like long sleeve tees.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
Ouch.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. Have you guys ever been in a physical fight before? If so, what was it like? If not, have you ever come close? I'll start this one. I have been in fights when I was younger, like in high school. I used to fight with my friends a lot. I have only been in a couple like real fights, but again, it was like when I was young, so it was just, I mean, I don't know how real those are. You know, nobody really knows what they're doing. You know what I mean? So, what was it like? I mean, I don't know. You punch each other and you pretty quickly get on the ground, and then it's sort of like whoever freaks out first loses, basically. Like it's sort of a you're not really able to damage each other that much, so you kind of just, it's a mental game, you know? I don't know. They're over in like 2 minutes.
You like the struggle.
I did sort of like it. I like confrontation. I get really it's sort of like a release. Like if things are like, if there's tension building, or if I can kind of see some problem between me and another person, I just want to get it out there and over with. I want to resolve it very quickly. So confrontation is a pretty quick way to do that.
Tom's got a problem solved, and his name is Revolver.
Yeah.
I've never been in that. I don't know. I've never been in an actual real fight. I've gotten into it physically a little bit with people here and there, but never like actually a real knockdown brawl type thing. And I don't have any confidence in my abilities in such a situation. If you even like glanced a blow across my nose, I would be out. I would just be like, oh wow, I got to step out. That really hurt. Okay, that really hurt, and that would be.
That's kind of what I mean. The mental game, you know, the other person just freaks out because like,
how is
God,
that mental? It just hurts.
Well, because like you cannot do that. You can just keep going on. Like, okay, yeah, got hit there, but I'm gonna get him back here. And like you kind of just keep going with it, and the first person who like jumps out loses when it's at that level.
The stoic Finn describes the process of shutting down his feelings to his typical American bride. I used to box. I've been in a few fights, but I'll let you guys continue because I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Have you ever been in a fight, Donald?
No, I was more the kind of guy that when someone threatened me, I would just lay down immediately. That guy. If someone threatened me, I'd be like, I would just be like, this is over, I'm done.
And your defense is just making them feel too bad to actually.
Yeah. And then eventually I graduated from that into antagonizing people until they started chasing me and I ran away cackling and everything. Like that was like my response was to think it was funny that they were trying to hurt me or something. But other than that, no, I didn't ever stand up for myself. So yeah,
That sounds a lot like what a wandering Buddhist monk would do. The town pranksters try to get his goat.
I'm actually surprised that I haven't been in more fights than I have been, because I just talk so much shit. I don't really do that as much anymore, but I used to just, like, the stuff that I say online is the same stuff that I say to people in real life. And I don't know, like, people talk like, oh, if you say this, they're gonna hit you. Like,
He
no,
might
people
press
don't.
a little button.
Yeah, nothing happens. I mean, maybe I've just gotten lucky or something, but
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
It's different for me because I feel like I have done similar amounts of shit talking or just like inappropriate speech and stuff. But since I'm female, most people won't immediately try to escalate it to something physical with me, you know. I mean, like, I don't think I've ever really taken advantage of that, like driven someone crazy, like being really cruel to them, knowing that, oh, they can't hit me or something like that. But obviously it plays into the dynamics of, you know, of whatever I'm around.
that's the worst when a girl does that, when she starts a fight and then runs behind like her boyfriend. Is like, okay, go get him. Like, what did you do that?
No, I mean, I'm just talking about there's no other guy involved, but people still wouldn't beat me up for something that they would beat a guy up for, you know, if they said the same thing that I did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think that happens as readily as people seem to think, which is probably a good thing, but I don't know. I don't know.
It depends on who you're around too. Some groups of people are more willing to get into it at the drop of a hat than others.
Yeah, maybe the people in the Pacific Northwest are
Yeah.
averse to violence and stuff. I don't know.
No, you throw the first punch. No, you go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yeah. You have anything to add to that, Leo?
I was always like, I was always one of those kids who said, like, my dad said if anybody hits me, I can hit him back in elementary school. So I would, if anybody
you grew up in the
start
1920s?
I'd finish. But then in high school, it's better because everybody's bigger, and if they try to pick a fight with you, you know, if somebody shoves you, somebody grabs you by the shirt collar. If you just get into a bladed stance on your toes and walk around them and slap them up, they won't fight, and they'll be like, "Quit it! That's not the way you're supposed to fight. Stop it! Quit it!" I remember the only fights I lost in high school were against wrestlers because I just didn't know what to do if somebody grabbed both of my legs.
Yeah, that's hard.
A lot like a goat.
I used to practice. My best friend from college, he had wrestled in high school, and he would, we would try to we would try to teach ourselves like Brazilian jiu-jitsu and stuff, like in the hallways. I don't know, we were really dumb.
It's fun.
It is fun. It is fun. And one of the things that he taught me from his wrestling days was like the knee game, where it's just tag with people's knees. You just have to try to, you know, it's so hard to, if you're not practiced in it, to avoid someone touching your knee. It's really hard.
It's really, really hard.
Yeah, wrestling is like one of the few, like there's a few like martial arts and that kind of stuff that I would really love to learn. I think would be super useful in a lot of situations, and wrestling is one of them. It's just really, really useful.
It definitely, you can do the most with it in real life, I'd say.
Yeah.
Bouncers are always using wrestling techniques to get somebody's, like you grab somebody by the belt and then you have the leverage to put your knee in the side and flip them out of the Booger Basement Club 3331, the jam.
Man, I would love to be a bouncer if I was big enough to do that. That seems kind of like a dream job. Just like, oh, this guy's giving me a license to do this to him. Yeah,
I've worked with a lot of bouncers, and they tend to be really, really nice guys. Especially where I was, they'd just be like nice farm boys who just happen to be born very large.
They kind of have that old school like protector of the village kind of
Yeah,
role, you know?
it's like when let's say you're a 6-year-old in Bavaria in 1950. All the industrial infrastructure, your commercial infrastructure, it's been destroyed by the Allies. So you're in a verdant, hilly landscape, and you're 6 years old. You look up to an 18-year-old guy named Gunther, who's known as the strongest man in the village. And you say he's so strong that even people in places other than here know how strong he is. You go to the river, you'd be lifting a rock, famously carry 4 children, burning in one arm. That's you need to look. You need to look at that type of guy, and not globalized type of freak.
I think you're 1 decade too late on your ideal German there, Leo.
No, this is I'm in a real place because it was like after, not before the war.
Oh, okay. All right, someone here, this isn't a question, but they say, please stop saying the R word. All right, Donald,
Nope.
this is for you. Please stop saying the R word.
Was reading, looking at old posts by Elizabeth Warren, and she had an article where she was talking about regulations, and she said, and it had a sentence that was like, after Ronald Reagan got into power, the R word became a bad word or something like that. She said it, and I was like, I don't know. I was trying to think of a way that I could screenshot it to make it look like I was trying to say that, yeah, the R word was a good word or something. Yeah. I don't know.
Wait, I don't understand. Why are we not supposed to say it?
From what I understand, the kids these days are being brought up with the idea that saying retarded is like a slur. And
Well, but the reason is because, wow, I don't even know how to put it into words. How do you put that in? It's insulting, degrading to retarded people. Like, I think that's the idea, right? That
Oh, so it's just like we're just fighting the future, fighting. It's one of those words that's just a descriptive word that becomes a pejorative, and then people stop saying it. So a new generation of teens can turn the next word into a pejorative.
Right, exactly. Like the category doesn't go away, and most of the time people are not using it in that context anyway. Like yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to stop saying it. That's the end.
Yeah. There's this Joey Diaz bit he does where he's kind of saying, I think he drops an F, you know, the other F, and he says that,
Ooh.
you know, like he kind of looks at the audience and he's like, what? You can't, I've been doing this for fucking 50 years. You can't change the rules on me now. You know, it's just kind of like, you got to accept that certain people, they mean it a certain way, and like don't pretend that you don't know what they're actually saying. You know what I mean? Like it's not actually hurting anyone's feelings. Like I don't know. But the thing is, like the word retarded, like that came out of the same sort of phenomenon of them trying to come up with like a PC or whatever kind of way of referring to, like, you know, whatever the correct term is now for those types of folks. And
is it developmentally disabled?
Yeah, differently brained. I don't know what the. Yeah, I honestly don't know what you're supposed to say. So, but it's just a cycle, you know.
Yeah, it is it's like a water wheel. The powerhouse of early industrialization. The water wheel can be applied to language and many other phenomena, but it won't be unless you're in the context of water wheels, which is why Marx is always talking about various early industrial terms. And now we talk in stupid computer-based terms. And I'm sure soon we'll develop a new vocabulary based on quantum jack-off technology, which is equally unsuited to the terms we apply it to, but everybody will understand anyway because that's the beauty of language.
There's this Patton Oswalt joke that he says about like It's just like a throwaway joke about marijuana laws. He says that it's like when you're a kid and you walk up to your friends and your friends are like, "Oh no, you're stepping on the floor. The floor is made of lava." And then you're like, "I wasn't here when you decided that, guys. Like I didn't come up with that." But and so then he's like, that's what he feels like about marijuana laws. He was born into the world and he's like, I didn't agree to that. I'm not like, I'm good. You guys can have, make it illegal if you want, but I'm not doing that or something. I feel like that about like so much nowadays. I just see like different things going on and it's like, okay, look, you can have your fun, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
It's not my role to care about this stuff. I don't know. It's just like, yeah. I don't know.
Some people seem to use that as a weapon for personal advancement, but I think most of the people who do it are just well-meaning people. I think we just need a little empathy. And, some people might like it, some people might not. Let's just be cool, baby.
Yeah, I feel like you could usually tell if someone's trying to be mean or what their intentions are. The thing is, you can have those bad intentions and not use, you can do that and not break the rules, or you can be well intentioned and accidentally break the rules, or whatever.
Yeah, it's just another one of those things where people don't want to trust themselves to know someone else's motivations. So everything becomes a surface level interaction. And you know when someone has vitriol and cruelty behind what they're saying, and it doesn't matter what words they're using, just go by the context, man. Figure it out. You'll get it. I almost guarantee that you'll get it.
I always found it funny that like you can basically turn any of the jokes that people think are beyond the pale into something that people will buy if you just attribute it to someone else you don't like in the joke, kind of thing. I think that's so funny. And if you listen carefully to so many of the stand-up specials that are out now and all that kind of thing, so many of them are the exact same types of jokes, but just reworked in some way that they're like
the bad
making
guy
fun of a
said
Trump
this.
supporter or something. Yeah. And I don't know. I always thought that would be funny if it was just like a comic from the 80s or something, just doing the exact same set, but then wrapping it around with I heard this Trump supporter say,
this guy with a MAGA hat said, "Hickory dickory dock."
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Someone here says, why does Tom keep getting banned from Twitter? So I haven't gotten banned. I don't know how long it's been, maybe a year or something. So fingers crossed on that one. But I honestly don't know why I got banned the first time. It could have been any number of things. And then they never explained to me. I did the whole appeal thing. They didn't explain. And then I was just getting immediately banned or kind of swept in. Like they seem to do like waves of purges or whatever. And they are definitely watching my IP because I can't make accounts on certain IPs where I've had other accounts connected to it. So I know they say they don't do that, but they clearly do. So I don't really know what's going on with their whole thing. But
wait, did they really say that they don't track IPs in terms of like they don't link them to accounts?
That's what I understand that they've said.
Really? Like you said, that's definitely
because you've gotten banned. You get banned at the same time that I get banned every single time. So
I've never been banned. Just want to make that clear.
Oh yeah, we forgot.
I have to use a proxy because they got my IP.
Really?
Yeah, I'm a renegade little man on the run.
Oh boy.
The haters have what I like to call the sin of pride, aka omnipotent. Guess what, haters? You don't know.
I am curious about what it is that gets that punishment to come down, because like you said, it could be one of so many different things, and it could be something like really, really innocuous. So I wonder what the thing is that catches every single time, Like for a while, I think that people were really mad at me just because of you, Tom. Like I didn't even say anything that, in particular that I think, I don't think I said anything, but everyone was like, "Oh, it's Tom. He's the," what did someone call you one time? The ex-feminist ugly ex-feminist like woman beater or something like that. I can't remember. I can't remember what it was, but people would just like follow me around insulting you. That's your power.
Yeah, it's
But yeah, I don't know if I ever did anything on my own worthy of the ban.
yeah. I don't think you ever really have it. It seems like it's just the IP thing.
Well,
my
no, I
understanding.
mean, I don't know. It's definitely happened, but like we said, it could be for anything. Like it could be for almost nothing. And as soon as someone gets mad at you, they can just go in and cherry pick, report you for a bunch of things just taken out of context. And, then you're done for. So who knows?
Right, and they get one in, they get the first one, and then they can kind of just ban you on subsequent
Right.
accounts
Yeah.
because you're evading the ban, and they don't really have to explain the first one. So
Yeah, I never got any explanation for never getting banned.
That's why I sincerely believe that accounts shouldn't be banned or like moderated in any way unless there's a court order, and they should only be able to get like a court order if like there's like a trial. Like,
Yeah.
So like
I
I can go
agree.
to trial and be like, give me my $10 back to something awful or something.
Well, my name did come up in court that one time. Do you remember with Alana, former You Can't Win guest? Alana.
Oh, it did? That's cool.
It did. I didn't know that.
Really? Yeah. It
What
was
happens?
well, I don't know how you might need to get rid of this because I don't know how much she wants of this known of this. But
Too bad.
there was I think that there was a girl who like her ex had gotten with like when they were on a break or something like that, and she made a particularly violent threat on one of her Instagram posts or something like that, and then we found her on Twitter and we're making fun of her, and I said that she had a retarded lash, like her lash line, her makeup had been done poorly. And this girl ended up taking Alana to court for threatening to drain all the blood from her body. That was the threat. Apparently, according to Alana, she was just this girl was just like complaining to the judge the whole time and being like, but she said this and it was really mean and how am I supposed to do it? And the judge was like eating it up because she's like all plastic surgeryed and Instagram ready and cute. And and my name came up. She was like, someone named AgileTablet said that I had a retarded lash.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, AgileTablet.
I wonder how far you can go and it still counts as like a death threat. Like if you can say, I'm gonna blow at you very, very hard until you die.
Yeah.
I'm gonna whistle at you until your eardrums burst. I'm gonna tickle you to death. I wonder how far that goes until it like actually counts as a real death threat. They probably have a lawyer working exactly on that.
Yeah, good use of their money.
All right. Next question here is, do you feel like the ambient paranoia level of society is rising? How about you, Donald? What do you think?
See, I think it's more within our subculture or something like that.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. If you look at like, that's why if you watch CNN and stuff at all, it's like people that are like, maybe Biden's a good choice or something like that. Like they don't, it hasn't penetrated at all. Like they don't care. Like I don't think that.
Yeah.
There is kind of like an urgency in the way that they talk about like the election being the most important and stuff, but they always say that. Like I remember, and I think it was even more plausible that like 2004 election was going to be bigger election or something because it was like a referendum on whether or not it was a good idea to invade Iraq at some level or something, or maybe 2008 or something, So I don't know. I feel like within the people that we know, everyone's amped up and pretty on edge, but I'm not really sure that like. I don't know. I also think that it feels like one of those things where I feel like things could get a lot worse.
Yeah.
And, like easily. And things are bad, but I feel like it's not like Syria level in the United States yet or something.
No one's actually changing their lifestyle, so it can't
Yeah.
be that bad.
People are, I guess, changing stuff in some ways, but like it's not total collapse. Like it's not like I don't know. It's not like we're at war to the degree that, like just bombs are not raining down on cities, like totally all over the world kind of thing, right? It's like, I don't know. I feel like it's almost possible things will get a lot worse. Like, I don't know, like that something terrifying will. It's almost like right now the scariest thing is that there's no one at the wheel kind of thing. Like everything seems to be charging along in a bad direction, and it's not really like it doesn't seem like there's really a good chance that it's going to go any other better way. And that's scarier to me more because of what it could do than what it is doing, kind of thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's always the. I don't know. That I feel like that frequently is the fear, right? Like I was talking to someone about climate change the other day, and they were just expressing their frustration with the narrative, with the like apocalyptic narrative, and I do think that is a little overemphasized in terms of its certitude, but not the fact that it really could happen. Like, it is true that all of these terrible things really could happen and could happen very soon. What the likelihoods are of each of those individual terrible things happening, we have no idea. And there are too many systems for us to accurately forecast what's actually going to happen. But that's where the fear is coming from for a lot of people, right? Just the not knowing. Like, that there's so much at stake and there's so many different ways it could go catastrophically wrong, but we just don't know how and when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a weird way, I think, like, the climate change protests that are kind of in vogue right now, like, especially it seems like young people are kind of getting on board with this idea of, like, we got to get out in the streets and then the weather will get better. Like, it seems like I feel like the fact that that's happening is almost it almost shows that they're not that serious about it, because, like, that's not what you do when things are as bad as you're claiming it is,
That's what I was trying to get at with what Donald was saying. Like, no one is actually changing. Like, no one is, like, getting rid of fossil fuels. No one's actually making these changes to their. And I don't mean like individual changes, like I'm going vegan or something like that. I mean like big social level changes. That's not happening. So that means we're just not taking any of that seriously yet. I think there's a desire on some people's ends to make people take that seriously, and that's why, like, they feel in their hearts that things are up to a fever pitch, and then they want to proselytize to other people to get everyone else on that same wavelength, but that doesn't change the facts of what's materially happening around them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of this kind of stuff is more like, I want to make sure that God or the universe sees me protesting, so that when shit hits the fan, like, I
was right.
It wasn't my, I said something. Wasn't me.
History will absolve me.
Yeah.
Sorry, exactly. I hate that. I'm not going to go into it though. But yeah, like you said, the fact that the protests are occurring, I mean, I'm not saying don't do it. I don't think it's a bad thing to be putting the pressure on your leaders to do something about that. But like you said, that's not what people who are actually in the panic of this situation would do,
Yeah. Okay, next question here is, Tom, please convince Donald to play The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
All right, Donald, please play The Witcher 3. I've talked to you about this before, haven't I?
What do you say, Donald? How about it?
It's got like magic junk in it or something. Like, is it? I don't know. I'm not
really
a
little bit, but it's pretty downplayed. It's not completely, it's not as fruity as a lot of that kind of stuff can be.
But there's like demons and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say it's like Games of Thrones level.
Okay.
In terms of the like, it's kind of like got that gritty realism type take on it.
Okay.
I'm trying to make it sound cool here,
Let me sell it to Donald. The Witcher 3, a game about a white-haired man who rides a horse, pulled from the pages of Polish adult fantasy. Snowy, swords, sorcery, sex? That's right. Witcher 3 coming strong.
Okay. Maybe I'll give it a chance then.
Thanks, Leo. There you go. I really like playing Gwent, the card game in there. That was a lot of fun.
You know what card game I like to play? Run off 70 fraudulent credit cards. Charge everything I like to buy. Bergdorf Goodmans. And then head over to Best Buy to buy 60 prepaid cell phones.
Gwent is like a card game, sort of like a Magic kind of a style card game that's in the game of The Witcher. Like the people in The Witcher play this game, and so you can kind of collect a deck and then like wander around and you find like, oh, this guy plays, so let's play Gwent now. I know there's a monster behind me that I need to kill, but let's play this card game real quick. And I ended up doing that a lot more than anything else in the game.
Didn't they make not a spin-off, but a game that was like more principally just Gwent?
Yeah, and they kind of messed it up. So
what was it called?
Gwent. Like, you're thinking of they made a game where you play out your battles through Gwent called
Thronebreaker. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and they messed up the card game. Like, it doesn't feel like a card game on the standalone stuff. It just feels like a dorky way of doing RPG
combat
battles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of like a collectible card game. So.
I don't mind that as an idea, though. That actually is selling me more on the game because one of the things I like about Fallout 4 the most is setting up farms and just farming a lot and going and collecting all the potatoes and stuff. So it's something like I like that a lot more than like fighting or going into the cities and stuff. So that might be an idea to like is there farming in that game at all?
No, it's a lot of like it's an open world, so it is cool that you can kind of explore stuff, but it's pretty heavy on the story, and you are spending most of your time.
And combat.
Yeah, right. Well, the combat is like the quests, and so you kind of do these. You have to go figure out what's going on with this village. They have disappearing kids, or there's some weird thing in the swamp that everyone's scared of, and you go check it out. And what I think is cool about the monsters and stuff is that it's actual Polish folklore. Like all that stuff is pulled from like real folklore. It's not like really dorky like, oh, this is a vampire, this is a werewolf. I mean, they might have those kinds of things, but it's kind of based in real tradition and stuff. So that aspect to it is kind of cool.
That's cool. Oh, I didn't realize until you guys had said that it's Polish stuff.
Yeah.
So that's positive too, because I can learn about my Slavic brethren.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so this one says, ask him how he got that rape charge talked down to battery. I'm going to direct this to Leo.
Well, real simple. What happened was that I happened to be rolling in a large truck. There are 18 of us in the back of this truck. See, it was what they call a deuce and a half, the old military style. And something funny happened. Funny. And that thing is that the rest of the people on this big truck were Czechs. You understand? There were 12 Czechs and then 7 people of another group, which I cannot name, but I'll give you a hint. Live in Greece. And here's the thing. We were headed to Sarajevo to deal with Serbs. As you know, I have an affinity for the Serbic people of Serbia. You know? Mr. Pavlovich, Mr. Bogdanovich. My friends, one of them is a butcher who invented a new cut of meat called the Krznila. And that gentleman, he might have had a criminal's face, but he was a great butcher. And anyway, all that happened was that it was a bumpy road. Our bodies were jostling around like particles in an iron pit being lifted by some type of strong magnet on a crane. And there was a language barrier issue, but there was proof after And they checked my hand, and from fingertip, fingernail, to palm, to thumb, no paint. And I was out of that courtroom in 45 minutes.
Interesting.
Yeah, never heard that one. All right. This one's for you, Donald. Does Don like any scary movies? Asked him a few times, but he always dodges the question. Got you on the grill here.
From Scream asking Donald the question?
Yeah, I see. I always thought it was weird that you would like deliberately watch a scary movie. I don't know. I was just like, I don't know. It never like clicked for me. I was like, am I gonna sit down and be scared now or something? I don't know. I know the theory that you're supposed to like watch it and it's just fun because you know it's fake or something. But I get really like enthralled in like 2-star comic book movies or anything. Like anything I watch. Like I like watch like Saving Private Ryan. I'm like crying and stuff.
That movie's
Like,
great. I love that movie.
yeah, but like just anything I get really into. That's one of the reasons I go to theater all the time. Is that I can watch almost anything, enjoy it. I have to kind of remind myself later if I actually liked it or if I actually thought it was good, because any movie I see is at least 4 stars in my mind or something like that. I just like. Yeah, I went to see Hustlers, and it's about the strippers that sort of turned into crime after the financial crisis.
Turned to worse forms of crime.
Yeah, worse forms of crime, yeah. And I reviewed it immediately after leaving, and I gave it 4.5 stars, even though it's like, you know, like parts of the climax. I mean, parts of like the major part of the movie involve like usher dancing and stuff like that. Like, it's like a goofy movie, but I watched it and I was like, oh man, this is so good. I don't know, and like just because I really enjoy. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's also because I always like have very low expectations for anything, so that when I see it, I'm like, this is great. But if I have high expectations for something, it just completely ruins it. So I had like the Criterion channel on my TV for a month, and then I just never watched it because I watched like 2 minutes of it and it'd be like a French person crying, and I'd be like, I'm not gonna watch this now. I'll watch like a Seth Rogen movie from 2007 or something instead. Yeah.
If you like superhero movies, I know there's a movie that's pretty scary that's also a superhero movie. I haven't seen it myself because it's a little bit too scary, but have you heard of the Black Panther?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Maybe you can get into.
Sure.
So
you know, the fact that bit never went, like, didn't take off to the moon is sad. Yeah. I couldn't. I love it, but I don't know what to do with it. You know?
I think that's the problem with it. It's just like a one-note thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Anyway, Leo, we got a question in here from the Discord. Someone wants to hear your thoughts on Tom Brown and other American fashion.
All right. Well, Tom Brown is a very talented designer. Listeners don't know who he is. He does unified classic menswear stuff. So it's all about pattern making and really intense crazy tailoring, like a Frankenstein suit jacket. He's the guy who brought the short suit to the Mon stream.
Oh, Tom hates that with the pro athletes. Yeah.
Well, it's always like think about the peak of American economy, but make it a little bit homoerotic and weird. That's the Tom Brown approach. Well, anyway, he's a story of American manufacturing success that was brought about by the New York fashion industry the New York garment industry that is being dismantled. So there are all these talented tailors, seamstresses that were just around for this guy to scoop up. The rest of the garment industry in America is pretty bleak, and there aren't too many good American designers working at big houses. The guy who does Louis Vuitton's menswear is pretty good. Let's see, but I forget if he's British. There's something that people need to know, and that's that the quality of fashion has plummeted precipitously since the financial crash that put a big part of the traditional business out of business and helped bring this consolidation where everything's owned by one or two companies to four. And what we've seen after that is the craftification you get in under other industries where they just try and extract profits by selling things with a low cost of materials and cost of manufacture. So your boss, if you're a designer, they would much rather you sell a long sleeve T-shirt that says "baseball cunt" in like a fake metal band font than to have a pattern, and to make some kind of beautiful dress or like a perfect suit of a new stripe. And so everything's just gone to hell. I mean, we have to fix it if we're ever going to cover our dignity as a country. That's what I think about that.
Yeah, I guess that'll wrap it up for this episode. Covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again, Leo and AgileTablet. And
Thanks for having us.
Say the prayers, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so you can send us some more questions at YouCan'tWinPod on Twitter. We have a Curious Cat, which is open to any and all questions, and we'll answer them on the show for you. And you can also get like a priority spot with your questions if you join the Discord, which you can do by subscribing to the Patreon. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you next time.